Welcome back, imagination connoisseurs. I'm Lana, and this is Lana Yuen Reviews, exclusively on the Brit Network. Today we are diving into a bona fide classic that I had never seen before. The one, the only, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1974. Despite all of the buzz, I actually have never seen a Texas Chainsaw movie before. This was my first and only one. Having already seen so many horror movies set in the rural South, like The Hills Have Eyes, Wrong Turn, and The Devil's Rejects, I assumed that Texas Chainsaw was going to be more of the same. Maybe the original, but certainly nothing I hadn't seen before. Boy, was I wrong. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre stars Marilyn Burns as Sally, Paul A. Partain as her paraplegic brother Franklin, Edwin Neal as the hitchhiker, Jim Siedow as the old man, and Gunnar Hansen as Leatherface. The film is directed by legendary horror director Tobe Hooper, who also happened to direct one of my favorite supernatural films of all time, Poltergeist. And yes, that is directed by Tobe Hooper, not by Spielberg. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is about 5 friends, or really 4 friends and the hot one's bitter and disabled brother, who head to rural Texas to visit a family grave. On the way, they stumble across the ruins of their old family home and meet the neighbors. But they'll wish they hadn't. It's about resilience. It's about chasing your dreams. But above all, it's about family. As is becoming the norm, this is a spoiler-filled review, so if you haven't seen it yet, make sure that you do. And if you can, grab the newly released 4K disc from Second Sight. It's f***ing gorgeous. And with that, let's see if this classic meets expectations. For an older film with little to no budget, I was amazed at how the setting immediately drew me in. From the artfully displayed rotting corpses strung about the graveyard, to the barren wasteland of abandoned restaurants and gas stations, to even the smaller details, like a poor little armadillo belly up on the side of the road. Tobe Hooper masterfully stages his story in a location that the rest of the world forgot, or doesn't want to know exists. There's a sense of dread that hangs heavy in every moment. Everything just feels off. Like when the Scooby-Doo crew stops at the gas station at the very start of the film, every local acts friendly, but you can see in their eyes that they know something they're hiding, and have just come to accept about the way things are around here. The eerie confirmation comes when Franklin is eavesdropping on the drunk sheriff, who's spewing nonsense as he lays on the ground.
I see things.
Except, it's not nonsense. It's a foreboding of what is to come. It's such a wonderfully ominous scene that sets the tone of this dangerous world we're about to enter. And when it comes to our main cast of slaughter fodder, I like them, even if they aren't anything we haven't seen 100 times in the last 2 decades. Still, I've personally never seen a group like that from the 70s, so for me, it added a unique charm. Did Texas Chainsaw give us our first merry band of will kills for all future slashers? Without knowing for sure, I can only say that if I were around for the flower power era of the 70s, the cast would have felt pretty fresh. Unfortunately, I missed it by about 2 decades, so for me, they just seem like your run-of-the-mill, peace-loving hippies on a road trip to hell, but without the recreational drugs, and that's when I realized this was truly a work of fiction. And yet, I still enjoyed them, for the most part. They were kind, open-minded, and, best of all, unsuspecting. They were good people in a simpler time, not like the cast of today's modern horror, full of influencers and tech-obsessed entrepreneurs, which, by the way, is a key plot point in the newest iteration of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre that was released on Netflix last year. Suffice to say, I skipped it. Out of the core group though, I thoroughly enjoyed Franklin's character. After hearing he's not most people's favorite, in fact, making people's lists of 10 worst horror characters of all time, I really appreciated him. Yeah, he was kind of a dick and usually very inappropriate, but it's not a crime to be f***ing weird. Thank God. If anything, today's horror films need more Franklins. Honestly, given the full cast of characters, I don't see how anyone has the nerve to call Franklin weird, because there's nothing anyone could possibly do to prepare me for how fucked up that hillbilly family is. I can't think of an introduction to a character more memorable and realistically unhinged than the first time we meet one of the 2 sons, the hitchhiker, played by Edwin Neal. Neal's character truly felt deranged. His twisted facial expressions, the excitement over animal slaughter techniques, slicing open his own f***ing hand, and then starting a fire inside the van, and then tucking the tiny explosive back into his fur pouch like that's just what you do with the thing. His crazy felt felt very real and made for the longest 6.5-minute Uber ride I have ever experienced. His brother, Leatherface, is an iconic bad guy with his bright apron and peeling actual face mask. He wields that chainsaw effortlessly, like it's an extension of him. I've never wielded a chainsaw, but I expect there to be some resistance when I cut through something, but he's like a painter with a brush, just these gliding, graceful, effortless strokes. And yet, behind the mask of flesh, you see the eyes of a confused and directionless child. A child that wants only to please their father in any possible way. Talk about some fucked up daddy issues, and not the sexy kind. To put it lightly, this family is insane. What I didn't expect was for the infighting between them to be so delightful. The resentment, the name calling, "You damn fool!" The dad whacking the kids with a stick, calling them little raccoon shits and chasing them around. The whole film is consistently both playful and horrific. One moment we're behind Sally, afraid of which part of her they might eat first, and the next, I'm laughing my face off as the dad's chiding the boys about the damage to the front door that Leatherface caused while chasing Sally with a chainsaw. It's this balance of terror and this weird family dynamic that works so well for me, like a really fucked up sitcom. Now, the violence might seem tame in comparison to what we see nowadays, but it's still savage and jaw-dropping. Acts like Leatherface hanging his victim from the meat hook, which was giving major Dead by Daylight, or how the family gathers around to help Grandpa smash Sally's head in. A sweet family moment. There's no agenda, they're just doing what they do. It's just typical Texan hospitality to them. They're just a family of pure chaotic evil. And as strong as the visual storytelling was, the audio design was really the nail in the coffin of a horrifying and terrorific experience. Every scene overwhelms your senses with blood-curdling horror. The generator is always whirring in the background, even when motion itself is slow or still. Chains are rattling, spiders are clacking, something is always rippling and reverberating, and it's a really eerie precursor to the uneven, disjointed pattern of that deafening chainsaw. It took me too long to realize that this freak show family was a bunch of cannibals. Susie or whatever is staring right at the meat roasting in the corner of the shop, and I'm not convinced that she was any more sure than I was. Even upon my third watch, I thought, is that a human torso? I mean, maybe. I guess it could be. And frankly, I'm not sure it was that important. These guys are f***ing scary as shit as is, just based on their pure unpredictability and derangement. And while being people eaters is the eyeball on top of a fucked up cannibal cake, truthfully, I don't think it would have changed the movie that much if they weren't. At least, not on the first watch. When I started the movie over, I was much more amused that the group had happily purchased and munched on some mystery barbecue meat. It's the little things that make a movie great. For Sally, being one of, if not the first, in a long line of shrieking and predominantly white final girls, she really doesn't get to do much, besides a moonlit nature jog and a very unpleasant dinner party. One of my favorite aspects of the final girl trope is that they eventually get to rise to confront their tormentors. It's usually a delightful coming-of-age story wherein the innocent hottie gets to exact a murderous revenge. Unfortunately, Sally gets the short end of a very bloody stick, narrowly escaping a bludgeoning, making her way out the window, and she really only makes it to the road because her captors are enjoying the chase. While it does lead to that beautifully iconic shot of Leatherface whipping his chainsaw around against the warm Texas sky, I would have preferred one extra beat of Sally fighting back against him. I think she deserved that. As for the do-gooder hippies, they just weren't that interesting. Franklin's sibling relationship with Sally was really the only thing that made Sally seem even remotely individualistic, aside from her Herculean ability to scream for hours on end. Again, it's not a deal breaker, but I would have liked to root more for the good guys, and I just didn't get to. I'm definitely on Team Leatherface. Now, I haven't scoured the internet for theories, but I would like to know what role any woman in this family has ever had, and for how long. There's never any mention of them, and yet, presumably, they must have existed sometime before they were turned into wife kebabs. Leatherface didn't learn to stitch that mask all on his own, did he? Overall, 1974's The Texas Chainsaw Massacre was practically all my favorite horror elements rolled into one smooth yet gruesome ride. A cabin slasher, girl alone in the house, incest-tainted freaks, home invasion, and an iconic sociopathic or mentally disabled killer, or in this case, killers, just doing what they do best. And all these genres fit into one single iconic film, masterfully done. So, what did you think of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre? Are any of the countless sequels worth watching? And how excited are you that we get a game based on the movies coming later this year? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, and until next time, get the f out of here, you little raccoon shits. It's not gonna be one of those times where I like get everything wrong. But above the, damn it. Now, the violence, long history of shrieking white women confront their tormentors. Tormentors? Tormentors. I think I'm thinking about dementors. Leatherface, I hardly know her face.
Don't do that in your mouth with it.